I came home on a Tuesday afternoon because Tuesdays don't expect anything. No banners, no surprises, no emotional speeches. Just a cheap rental car, a duffel bag that still smelled like jet fuel, and a key I hadn't used in years. After serving overseas for most of my adult life, I learned that quiet returns were safer. Less explaining, less disappointment. I hadn't told my family I was coming back. Not because I wanted drama, but because I didn't want expectations. My name is Allison Hart, and at the time I was a logistics officer in the U.S. Army. Not the movie kind. No weapons, no kicking doors. I kept bases running. Fuel arrived on time. Medical supplies didn't disappear. Convoys didn't break down because someone forgot a form. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. And because it worked, I kept getting sent farther away for longer periods with less notice. That's how I ended up being gone when everything started. I parked across the street from my parents' house and sat there longer than necessary. The house looked the same from the outside, but something felt off. The driveway was full. Not family cars. New cars. Expensive ones. A black SUV I didn't recognize. A white sedan with dealer plates still on it. I checked the address on my phone to make sure I hadn't driven to the wrong place. Same house, same number, different energy. I stepped out of the car and adjusted my jacket. Cold didn't bother me much anymore. After years of airfields and concrete weather just felt like information. The front windows were lit up. Bright, too bright. There was music inside. Not background music, party music. I stood there, duffel bag on my shoulder, trying to process why my parents were apparently hosting a social event on a weekday afternoon. I walked up the path and paused before knocking. Through the window, I saw people I didn't recognize. Dressed well. Laughing easily. Someone popped a bottle of champagne like this happened often. It didn't. At least it never had when I lived there. I opened the door without knocking. Old habit. Military bases teach you not to hesitate unless you want attention. The first thing I noticed was the furniture. New. Expensive. The old couch was gone. The rug my mother refused to replace was gone. In its place was something white and impractical. A bad idea if you plan to live in a house with people. The second thing I noticed was the silence. Not instant. It took a second to land. Conversations stopped halfway through sentences. Laughter died mid-breath. Someone turned down the music without being told to. And then I saw her. My sister Tiffany stood near the center of the room, holding a drink surrounded by people who were clearly listening to her. She was wearing a fitted blazer, her hair styled the way she used to make fun of when we were teenagers. She looked confident, comfortable, like she belonged exactly where she was. That wasn't the problem. The problem was what she was saying. So when I was stationed overseas, logistics was everything Tiffany said, smiling. You don't realize how much depends on one supply chain until it breaks. I didn't react. I didn't need to. My brain was already doing the math. She wasn't telling a story she'd heard. She was telling mine. Someone near her nodded with admiration. That must have been intense, he said. Tiffany laughed lightly. It was. But it teaches you discipline. Discipline. That word landed harder than it should have. My mother noticed me then. Her face changed in a way I hadn't seen before. Not surprise, not relief. Something closer to panic quickly buried under a forced smile. Allison, she said too loudly. You're home. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The room didn't relax. People stared. Some confused, some curious. A few uncomfortable, like they'd walked into the wrong meeting. My father moved toward me, hands slightly raised, as if volume control might fix this. You didn't tell us you were coming, he said. I was nearby, I replied. That wasn't a lie. Just incomplete. Tiffany turned slowly. When she saw me, her expression didn't collapse. It tightened. Like a professional realizing a meeting had just changed direction. She smiled. Allison, she said. Wow. This is unexpected. I nodded once. Looks like it. Someone in the group laughed nervously, unsure if that was a joke. My mother clapped her hands together. Everyone, this is Allison, my older daughter. There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough. Tiffany didn't miss it. She's my sister, Tiffany added quickly. She's been away for a while. Away. That was one way to put it. A woman near the kitchen looked between us. "Wait," she said, smiling politely. "I thought you were Allison." Tiffany didn't even blink. "I am." The room leaned in without moving. My father cleared his throat. "What she means is—" "It's okay," Tiffany said, cutting him off. She turned to me. "You caught us mid-conversation." "About my job," I said. She shrugged. "Family stories." My mother laughed too fast. "Yes, stories. We were just celebrating." "Celebrating what I asked." My mother hesitated. My father looked at the floor. Tiffany lifted her glass. A few things she said. Life, progress. Progress. I looked around the room again. The furniture. The cars outside. The people who clearly didn't come here for casseroles or nostalgia. And then someone said it. A man in a tailored jacket smiled at Tiffany and said, "Captain Hart, would you like another drink?" The word captain didn't echo. It didn't need to. It settled. Tiffany accepted the drink without correcting him. My mother smiled. My father nodded. No one laughed. No one corrected him either. I set my duffel bag down by the wall. Slowly, on purpose. The silence came back heavier this time, like everyone had realized they were standing too close to something fragile. I stood there taking in the room, the faces, the version of my life that was apparently happening without me. And for the first time since I'd walked in, I didn't need to ask any more questions. I didn't move right away because movement would have turned this into a scene, and scenes attract opinions. Instead, I stayed where I was and let the room keep talking around me. People do that when they're uncomfortable. They fill silence with noise and hope it smooths things over. Tiffany slipped easily back into conversation like she'd been interrupted by a delivery, and not a person. She leaned toward the man who had offered her a drink and thanked him by name. That caught my attention. She knew everyone here. Not just faces. Names. Context. That takes time. "So where are you based now?" a woman asked her. "Mostly overseas," Tiffany said. "Depends on the assignment." "Middle East," someone else chimed in. Tiffany smiled in a way I recognized. It was the smile you use when you know the answer, but want credit for restraint. "I can't get into specifics." That earned a respectful nod from half the room. Nothing builds trust faster than pretending you're restricted by policy. I watched how she stood. Shoulders back. Chin level. She'd practiced that. Watched me do it enough times growing up, probably. It wasn't a costume. It was a performance with rehearsal behind it. My mother drifted toward the kitchen, busying herself with plates that didn't need rearranging. My father hovered near the window, pretending to check the weather. Neither of them looked at me again. I took a step forward. Just one. Enough to be seen without demanding attention. A man near the bookshelf turned. "Oh," he said, spotting me. "You must be family." "I am," I said. He extended a hand. "I'm Mark, Tiffany's colleague." I shook his hand. "From where?" He laughed. "Good question. Defense contracting, mostly logistics." I looked at Tiffany. She didn't look back. "Mark's been a great help," Tiffany said over her shoulder. "He understands how these systems work." That was new. She'd never understood systems before. She avoided anything with instructions longer than a paragraph. "Small world," Mark said. "Two sisters in similar fields." I didn't correct him. Not yet. I was still collecting information. Someone clinked a glass to get attention. A woman I didn't know stood near the dining table, smiling brightly. "I just want to say how inspiring it is to have someone like Tiffany here," she said. "Serving her country and still making time for family and community." Applause followed. Polite but sincere. Tiffany dipped her head modestly. "Thank you. It means a lot." My mother clapped the hardest. That's when I understood something important. This wasn't just about money or convenience. This was about admiration. About being seen. I scanned the room again. Framed photos lined the shelves. New ones. Tiffany in places I'd been. Or places close enough to pass. A base sign in the background of one picture. A flight line in another. She hadn't been sloppy. She'd curated. A man near the couch leaned over to me. "You must be proud," he said. "Of what?" I asked. "Your sister," he said. "Captain Hart." There it was again. I felt it this time. Not shock, pressure, like the air had shifted a few inches to the left. "I didn't know she'd made captain," I said. He chuckled. "Fast track, I guess." "Guess so," I said. I looked at my parents. My mother avoided my eyes. My father met them briefly, then looked away. That was confirmation. I walked farther into the room, weaving between people who stepped aside without realizing why. Tiffany finally turned to face me fully. "You okay?" she asked, voice light. "I'm fine," I said. "Just catching up with everything." She tilted her head. "You've been gone a long time." "I have. And things change," she said. "They do." Someone nearby laughed, thinking this was playful banter. Tiffany lowered her voice. "Can we talk later?" "Later," I repeated. "Yeah, when this wanes down." I glanced around. "Does it?" She smiled. "Usually." My mother appeared at Tiffany's side like a shield. "Sweetheart, did you want to show Allison the backyard?" I looked at her. "Why?" My mother's smile tightened. "Just thought you might want some air." "I'm fine," I said again. My father stepped closer. "We didn't expect you today." I noticed. Tiffany sighed softly. "Look, this isn't the time." "For what?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The woman who'd made the toast earlier approached again. "Tiffany, we were just talking about that charity you mentioned. The one for veterans." Tiffany brightened. "Yes, it's close to my heart." I turned to her slowly. "It is." She met my eyes. "Of course." "Since when?" Her smile flickered. Just for a fraction of a second. The woman continued oblivious. "It's wonderful what you're doing. Using your experience to give back." My father nodded along, eager. "She's very involved." I looked at him. "She is." He cleared his throat. "We all are." That was new information. Tiffany raised her glass again. "It's important to take care of your own," she said. "Especially after everything they go through." Applause again. Louder this time. I felt something settle in. Not anger. Not sadness. Recognition. This wasn't a misunderstanding that needed correcting. It was a structure. A story with roles already assigned. I took another step forward, close enough now that people started to sense proximity. Tiffany's smile didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. "Allison," she said, "you're making people uncomfortable." "Am I?" "Yes." I looked around. A few faces had gone stiff. Others curious. No one spoke. "I don't see how," I said. "I'm just here." She leaned in, voice low. "You're not supposed to be." There it was. The sentence she didn't plan to say out loud. My mother gasped, quietly. My father froze. I held Tiffany's gaze. "Since when?" She straightened. "We'll talk later." I glanced at the people around us. "I think we already are." Silence returned, heavier than before. Someone set a glass down too hard. Another person checked their phone without looking at it. Tiffany took a breath and did something deliberate. She turned to the room and smiled. "Sorry, everyone," she said. "Family moment." My mother laughed nervously. "Yes, sisters." A few people smiled back, relieved to have an explanation. I stayed where I was. And in that moment, with my name being used like a prop and my parents standing beside it, I realized I wasn't interrupting a lie. I was standing inside it. I didn't raise my voice because the lie didn't need volume to survive. It needed agreement. So I waited until people drifted back to their conversations and the room pretended to breathe again. Then I picked up my duffel bag and walked toward the hallway like I belonged there. No one stopped me. That told me everything I needed to know. My mother followed first. She moved quickly the way she used to when she wanted to fix something before it broke all the way. My father came after her, slower, already tired. Tiffany stayed behind with the guests smiling and laughing, keeping the story intact. The hallway felt smaller than I remembered. Same pictures on the wall, but newer frames. I stepped into the kitchen and set my bag down by the table. My mother reached for a towel that didn't need folding and folded it anyway. "Let's talk quietly," she said. "We are," I replied. My father closed the door. The click was soft but final. My mother turned to me. "You shouldn't have come like this." "Like what?" "Unannounced." I looked at her. "I came home." She flinched at the word home. "You've been gone a long time." "That's not an answer." My father cleared his throat. "This isn't what it looks like." I nodded. "That's what people say when it's exactly what it looks like." My mother sat down. It started small. I waited. "She just needed help," my mother said. Tiffany was struggling. "With what?" My father spoke this time. "She couldn't get approved for anything. Credit housing jobs. People didn't take her seriously. And your solution," I said, "was to give her my name." My mother winced. "We let her use it." "For what?" At first she hesitated. "Just a card." One card. To build credit. I pictured my credit report. Clean, quiet, untouched for years because I didn't use it much overseas. You didn't think to ask me. You were deployed, my father said. We didn't want to worry you. You worried me now. My mother looked up sharply. You always handle things better. There it was. The compliment that doubles as permission. So you kept going, I said. My father nodded once. It snowballed. Define snowballed. My mother's voice dropped. Loans, a car, then the house. I felt that one. Not emotionally, practically. The house is in my name. My father looked at the floor. It made the rates better. And the payments, Tiffany's been covering them, my mother said quickly. Mostly. Mostly, I repeated. She's trying, my mother said. She really is. I leaned against the counter and the uniform. My mother froze. That wasn't part of a credit card, I said. That wasn't part of a loan. My father rubbed his face. People respect it. So you let her wear it. She doesn't wear it, my mother said. She just mentions it. She stood in my living room and accepted my rank. Silence sat between us. Thick, sticky. She needed credibility, my father said quietly. You have that. I looked at him. I earned it. He nodded. We know. Then why does she get to use it? My mother's eyes filled. Because you're strong. I waited for more. It didn't come. You always were, she continued. You don't need us the way she does. That's not true, I said. It is, she said gently. You've always been independent. Independent. Another word that means convenient. So the plan, I said, was to let her live as me. My father spoke before my mother could. Temporarily. How long is temporary? He didn't answer, until what I pressed. Marriage, promotion, retirement. My mother reached for my hand. I stepped back. She was finally happy, my mother said. People admired her. She had direction. By erasing me. You weren't erased, my father said. You were away. I stared at him. Say that again. He didn't. My mother's voice cracked. We didn't think you'd come back like this. Like what? Like you'd notice, she said, then stopped herself. The truth landed anyway. So what now, I asked. My father straightened. We need to keep things calm. For who? For everyone, he said. Especially Tiffany. I waited. You can't blow this up, my mother said. It would destroy her. I nodded. And me. You'll recover, she said without thinking. You always do. I laughed once. It came out wrong. My father stepped closer. You don't understand how fragile she is. I understand, I said. You're afraid she won't survive without my life. That's not fair, my mother said. It's accurate. My mother wiped her eyes. Just give us time. For what? To figure out a way to unwind this. Unwind, I repeated. You can't unwind a federal identity. My father's jaw tightened. We can keep it quiet. By telling me to disappear. No, my mother said quickly. Just don't interfere. The words sat there ugly and exposed. Interfere with what I asked. With what's working, my father said. I looked at both of them. Really looked. The fear. The justification. The relief that the lie had held for as long as it did. You chose her, I said. My mother shook her head. We chose peace. At my expense. My father didn't deny it. I picked up my duffel bag. Not to leave. Just to feel the weight again. I need to hear this clearly, I said. You want me to stay quiet? My mother nodded. For how long? She hesitated. That's not an answer, I said. My father's voice dropped. Long enough. I breathed in through my nose. Out through my mouth. Controlled. Measured. The way I handled problems at work. Okay, I said. Both of them relaxed at the same time. My mother even smiled, relieved. That's good, she said. You're doing the right thing. I looked at her. I didn't say yes. The relief vanished. I said, I hear you, I continued. That's all. My father stiffened, Allison. I picked up my bag and turned toward the door. You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a decision. Neither of them followed me out of the kitchen. And when I stepped back into the living room with Tiffany laughing in my name and my parents staying behind, it was clear that this wasn't a family problem waiting to be fixed. It was a system that had already chosen its favorite outcome. Tiffany didn't look surprised when I crossed the room toward her, which meant she'd been watching me the whole time. She excused herself from the circle around her with a hand on someone's arm and a smile that promised she'd be right back. Then she turned and walked toward the hallway without asking me to follow. I did anyway. She led me past the kitchen, past my parents' closed door into the small office my father used to pay bills and forget passwords. The door shut behind us with a careful click like she didn't want the sound to carry. She poured herself a drink from the decanter on the desk. Didn't offer me one. Rough reunion, she said. You're wearing my name, I replied. She smiled. You're not using it. I stayed standing. She sat, crossed her legs, comfortable, like this room had always been hers. Mom and Dad told me you were upset, she said. I figured. About what? She rolled her eyes. Come on. You show up unannounced. You stand there like a federal audit. Of course you're upset. I looked around the room. Filing cabinet, shredder, printer, a laptop plugged into the wall. Everything neat, intentional. How long, I asked. She sipped her drink. Depends what you mean. How long have you been me? She set the glass down. Long enough that people don't question it. That wasn't the question. She shrugged. A few years. Years. She said it like she was talking about a lease. You told them you were a captain, I said. I am, she replied. I waited. In every way that matters, she added. That's not how rank works. She leaned forward. It is if no one challenges it. I felt the shift then. Not fear. Awareness. This wasn't a conversation. It was a negotiation she thought she'd already won. Why, I asked. She laughed softly. Because I needed a life. You needed mine. You had extra, she said. You were overseas. No social life, no spending, no presence. It was sitting there unused. I wasn't. She waved a hand. Functionally. I took a breath. You stole my identity. She tilted her head. That sounds dramatic. It's accurate. She leaned back. Do you know how many people benefit from borrowed identities every day? Wives use husbands' credit. Parents co-sign for kids. This is just scaled. You signed legal documents as me. I had permission. From who? She smiled. Not you. I nodded once. Okay. That caught her off guard. Okay, she repeated. Okay, I said. Let's talk about the risk. Her smile tightened. What risk? The part where this collapses. She laughed. It won't. Everything collapses, I said. Systems just decide when. She stood up slowly, walked around the desk, stopped a few feet from me. You're assuming you have leverage, she said. I do. She shook her head. You don't. I watched her face as she decided how much to reveal. She chose confidence. You really think you can walk into a police station and say your sister stole your life? She asked. Do you know what they'll see? I didn't answer. They'll see a decorated veteran with no recent civilian activity. She continued. No local address, no financial footprint, no witnesses who support your version. She took a step closer, and they'll see this. She opened the drawer and slid a folder across the desk toward me. I didn't touch it. Go ahead, she said. You should read it. I opened the folder. Medical documents, my name, my date of birth, diagnoses that made my stomach tighten. PTSD, anxiety disorder, adjustment issues, notes about emotional instability, recommendations for supervised care. None of it real. All of it detailed. I closed the folder carefully. You forged federal medical records, I said. She shrugged. Private clinics. Happens all the time. You attach them to my identity. Yes. For what purpose? She met my eyes. Insurance. Protection. Protection from what? From you, she said. I waited. If you make noise, she continued, these get very loud, very fast. I felt the weight of it then. Not panic. Calculation. You'd have me committed, I said. Evaluated, she corrected. Temporarily. Based on lies. Based on documentation, she said. Which matters more? I stared at her. You planned this. She smiled. Of course I did. You weren't borrowing, I said. You were replacing. She didn't deny it. I needed permanence, she said. Borrowing is unstable, so you erased me, she sighed. You're not erased. You're archived. That word landed wrong. You think you're smarter than me, I said. I know I'm more prepared, she replied. I picked up the folder again and slid it back to her. You're gambling. She laughed. No, I'm insured. I looked at the laptop on the desk. The filing cabinet? The shredder. How many people know, I asked. She thought for a moment. Enough. My parents, I said. She nodded. They needed convincing. Who else? She shrugged. Accountants, a lawyer, a few bankers. I filed that away. And if I stay quiet, I asked. Her shoulders relaxed. Then nothing changes. For how long? As long as you're reasonable. I nodded. Define reasonable. She reached into her bag and pulled out a checkbook. Wrote quickly. Tore a check and slid it toward me. $10,000. Seed money, she said. For your fresh start. I didn't pick it up. You leave town, she continued. You don't contradict me. You don't use the name publicly. You let me finish what I started. And I get, she smiled, peace. I looked at the check, then at her. You think this is a business deal, I said. It is. You think I don't understand systems, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Do you? I do, I said. Better than you. Her smile flickered again. Just a hairline crack. You're emotional, she said. That makes people sloppy. I bent down and picked up the check. Folded it once. Neatly. Her posture loosened. Smart, she said. I slid the check into my pocket. I accept your terms, she exhaled. Good. I turned toward the door. One more thing, she said. Don't try to surprise me. I paused with my hand on the knob. I won't, she smiled, satisfied. When I stepped back into the living room, the noise swallowed me again. Laughter. Music. My name floating through conversations like it belonged to someone else. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't explain. I walked out the front door, the cold air hitting my face like clarity, and I didn't look back because there was nothing left inside that needed my approval. The cold outside felt cleaner than the air inside the house, and I welcomed it the way you welcome a checklist. I didn't rush. Rushing is what people do when they think emotion is the solution. I walked to the rental car, set my bag in the trunk, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. The house behind me was loud again. Music back on. Laughter patched over the damage. I took out my phone and opened the Notes app. Not to vent, to list facts. Tiffany was using my name, my rank, my credit. My parents knew. There were documents. There was at least one lawyer, possibly more. There were banks involved. That meant compliance departments. That meant logs. And there was a folder full of fake medical records with my name on them. I started the engine. I didn't go to a hotel. Hotels leave records and questions. I drove to an apartment I kept for transitions, a place I'd leased years earlier when I thought I might want a civilian life. It was small, functional, still in my name. No forwarding address attached to it. No one from my family had the key. Inside, I dropped my bag, locked the door, and stood there for a moment, listening to nothing. No music, no voices, just the hum of the refrigerator. I liked that. Silence without performance. I pulled out my laptop and powered it on. It booted slower than I remembered. I made a note to replace it later. Then I plugged in a small metal security token I'd kept on my keychain for years. The screen prompted for authentication. I typed the passphrase from memory. Muscle memory counts as memory. The system opened. I wasn't hacking anything. I didn't need to. I still had clearance. No one had marked me inactive because officially nothing about me had changed. That was Tiffany's biggest mistake. She'd assumed absence meant invisibility. It doesn't. It means fewer interruptions. I started with my own financial overview. Credit reports, accounts, activity summaries. I didn't scroll fast. I let the information line up. There were accounts I didn't recognize, cards I'd never applied for, a mortgage that wasn't mine but carried my name. Payments made on time until recently, just enough to keep things quiet. I marked each one. Timestamps, lenders, branch locations, patterns. Then I checked address changes. Someone had tried to redirect mail months earlier. It hadn't fully worked. Military forwarding had blocked some of it. That explained why I hadn't seen every notice. Not clean, but effective enough if you assumed I wasn't paying attention. Next, I checked benefits activity, housing allowances, medical access logs, routine use at clinics I'd never visited. The kind of thing that doesn't raise alarms until someone looks closely. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, labeled folders. Not because I was angry, because I was methodical. An hour and my phone buzzed. A text from an unfamiliar number. You left fast. I didn't reply. Another message followed. We need to keep this calm. That one was from my mother. I muted the thread. I opened another secure app and scrolled through contacts I hadn't used in years. People I'd worked with. Auditors. Officers who understood systems because they'd had to fix them when they broke. I selected one. Marcus Bell answered on the third ring. This better not be a pocket dial, he said. It's me, I said. There was a pause. You're stateside. Briefly. You sound like you're about to ruin someone's week. Possibly several, he sighed. What do you need? I need read-only access to oversight logs tied to my identity. Quietly. He didn't ask why. He asked when. Now. Give me a minute. While he worked, I opened a separate browser and checked public property records. My parents' house showed up under my name, heavily leveraged. Multiple liens. Not defaulted yet, but close. Someone had been juggling payments. I added it to the list. Marcus came back on the line. You still have clearance, he said. No flags, no restrictions. That's interesting. It is. I'm routing you through the compliance view. You'll see activity, not triggers. That's all I need. The screen refreshed. There it was. Login locations, device IDs, authentication requests. Most of them traced back to the same network. My parents' house. Same router, same pattern. So it wasn't just her, Marcus said quietly. No. You want me to flag this? Not yet. He paused. You're sure? Yes. All right, he said. But this isn't small. I know. Before hanging up, he added, You're going to get pulled into an internal review. I expect that. Some people don't like attention. I don't need them to like it. The call ended. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling for a few seconds. Not to calm down. To reset. This wasn't about exposing Tiffany. It was about understanding the scope. I kept going. I checked nonprofit oversight databases. Not because I suspected anything, because Tiffany had mentioned charity too easily. People lie about things they think sound good. A familiar name appeared in the administrator list of a small veterans assistance fund. My name. My authorization. I clicked into the transaction history. Withdrawals. Modest at first, then larger. Labeled emergency housing, medical transport, support grants. The recipients didn't match. I stopped scrolling. That changed the classification. Identity theft is serious. Financial fraud is serious. This was worse. I closed my eyes for 2 seconds, counted, then reopened them and kept working. I downloaded everything. Every approval. Every signature. Every IP trace. No commentary, just data. By the time the sky outside the window started to lighten, I had a folder structure that made sense. Not emotionally, logically. Each piece connected to the next without needing a story to hold it together. My phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail notification. Tiffany. I didn't listen to it. I stood up, stretched once, and poured a glass of water. The apartment felt steady, neutral. That helped. Back at the laptop, a new alert appeared. Internal review notice. Automated. Routine language. Verification of identity and recent activity requested. I acknowledged it. That was the price of accuracy. You don't trigger systems without being seen by them. I closed the laptop and sat there, letting the room exist without commentary. Somewhere across town, Tiffany was probably explaining something to someone. Adjusting, reframing. I wasn't interested in what she was saying. I was interested in what the record said, and they were starting to say plenty. The first confirmation came quietly, the way real problems usually do. No alarms, no warnings. Just a small notification in my inbox that looked exactly like 100 others I'd received over the years. Routine language. Neutral tone. A request for verification tied to recent activity associated with my identity. I didn't respond right away. I let it sit there unread while I finished mapping the last set of transactions. Timing mattered. Systems don't like surprises, but they respond well to consistency. When I finally opened the message, I followed procedure. Verified my identity through the proper channel. Uploaded nothing extra. Asked no questions. That was important. People who ask questions too early draw the wrong kind of attention. By mid-morning, a second message arrived. This one from a financial institution I hadn't spoken to in years. It thanked me for confirming unusual activity and informed me that several accounts were being temporarily restricted pending review. Restricted. Not closed, not accused, just slowed down. That was enough. I went back through my files and flagged the accounts I knew Tiffany relied on most. Not emotionally, logistically. Which ones paid monthly expenses? Which ones handled appearances? Which ones funded confidence? I didn't call the banks. I didn't threaten anyone. I let compliance do what it always does when data stops lining up. By noon, my phone started buzzing again. This time not from my family. An unknown number called twice. I let it go. A voicemail followed. Tiffany's voice tight but controlled. "Hey," she said. "Something weird is happening with one of the accounts. Did you touch anything?" I deleted the message. 10 minutes later, another call. This time from my father. I muted it. The third call came from my mother. I didn't answer that either. I wasn't ignoring them to be cruel. I was ignoring them to avoid contaminating the process. The moment this became a conversation, it stopped being a system problem and turned into a family negotiation. I wasn't interested in negotiating. I went back to the laptop and opened the oversight dashboard Marcus had routed me through. New activity logs populated the screen. Flags appeared next to transactions that had previously blended in. A pattern was emerging, and it wasn't subtle anymore. Tiffany had been careful, but she'd been consistent. Consistency makes things easier to find. I watched as one payment failed to clear. Then another. Not dramatic, just delayed. A quiet inconvenience that would force her to make a phone call. I pictured her doing exactly that. Sitting somewhere comfortable, smiling while she explained the situation, expecting reassurance. She didn't get it. By late afternoon, a new alert popped up. This one tied to benefits verification. A request for clarification regarding medical service usage associated with my record. That one mattered. Medical systems escalate faster because mistakes cost money in lawsuits. I responded with documentation I already had. Proof of my location during the dates in question. Travel orders. Base access logs. Nothing confidential. Just facts. Within an hour, the status changed from inquiry to review. My phone rang again. I answered this time. "What did you do?" Tiffany asked. No greeting, no pretense. "I verified my information," I said. "You triggered something." I responded to requests. "You knew what would happen." "I knew what should happen." She exhaled sharply. "You said you accepted my terms." "I did." "This isn't that." I leaned back in the chair. "It is exactly that." Her voice dropped. "You're messing with things you don't understand." I smiled slightly. She always said that when she was losing control. "I understand audits," I said. "I've lived inside them." "This isn't an audit," she snapped. "This is my life. You built it on my records." Silence stretched. I could hear her breathing. "Call them," she said. "Fix it." "I didn't break anything." "You're being petty. This is procedural." She laughed once. It sounded forced. "You think this ends well for you?" "I think it ends accurately." She hung up. I set the phone down and went back to the screen. Another restriction appeared. Then another. Not catastrophic. Just enough friction to force attention. By evening, I received a formal notice from a federal oversight office. Polite language. Clear scope. Request for cooperation in an ongoing verification process related to identity consistency and benefit usage. I replied within the hour. Confirmed availability. Provided documentation. Asked nothing in return. That was when the internal review on my end escalated. A scheduled call appeared on my calendar for the next morning. Identity confirmation. Routine, they said. Necessary. I welcomed it. At the same time, another alert appeared. This one wasn't addressed to me. It was visible through the compliance view. A nonprofit account associated with veteran assistance had been temporarily frozen pending investigation into irregular disbursements. That one wouldn't be quiet. I sat back and let the room go still. Not emotionally, operationally. This was the point where the system stopped nudging and started asking. My phone buzzed again. A text this time, from my mother. "Please, this is getting serious." I didn't reply. Another message followed. "Your father is panicking." I muted the thread again. An email came in from a law firm I didn't recognize. Carefully worded. Neutral. Requesting clarification regarding my awareness of certain financial activities conducted under my name. I forwarded it to the appropriate contact without comment. By nightfall, the pattern was clear. What had once been a smooth illusion was now a series of small delays, questions, and interruptions. The kind that compound. The kind that force explanations. I closed the laptop and stood up. The apartment lights reflected off the window. Somewhere across the city, Tiffany was probably pacing. Calling people. Asking for favors she thought she still had. She'd planned for confrontation, for emotion, for guilt. She hadn't planned for friction. I picked up my jacket and checked my phone one last time before heading out. A missed call from an event coordinator. Voicemail attached. I didn't listen to it yet. I didn't need to. I already knew what it meant. The system wasn't angry. It wasn't vengeful. It was doing what it always does when stories stop matching records. It was slowing everything down until only the truth could keep moving. I stepped through the service entrance because it was faster and because no one looks twice at someone who belongs to the background. The event was already in full motion. Music floated down the hallway in polished waves, the kind designed not to offend anyone with money. Staff moved with purpose, trays balanced, faces neutral. I adjusted the borrowed blazer clipped on the temporary badge and took a tray from the prep table without asking. The ballroom was everything Tiffany liked. High ceilings, soft lighting, expensive restraint. People who smiled with their teeth, but measured with their eyes. She stood near the center, surrounded by attention, her posture perfect, her voice easy. She looked like someone who had never been told no. I moved slowly through the room, not hiding, just not announcing myself. Guests glanced at me and then away. I was part of the furniture now. That worked in my favor. Tiffany lifted a glass and laughed at something a man beside her said. He leaned in, impressed. She nodded like she was used to it. On the stage behind her, a small sign bore my name, Allison Hart, printed cleanly, confidently. I felt nothing about it, just noted it. A woman near the table whispered, "That's her," pointing discreetly. "The officer," her friend nodded. "You can tell." I passed behind them and kept moving. An event coordinator approached Tiffany with a tablet. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the change. A flicker of irritation. Then dismissal. Tiffany waved her away, smile intact. The coordinator hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. She didn't look reassured. I set my tray down and checked my phone. 3 new alerts. One from a credit issuer. One from a mortgage servicer. One from a benefits administrator. All routine language. All effective immediately. I looked up. Tiffany's phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at the screen and frowned slightly. Then she slid it into her clutch like it was nothing. Another buzz. This time she stepped aside. I walked closer. Not toward her, past her. Close enough to hear. "What do you mean declined?" she said quietly. "Run it again." She listened. Her jaw tightened. "That's not possible," she said. "I verified this yesterday." She ended the call and took a breath. Smoothed her dress. Reset her face. She turned back toward the group, ready to re-enter. Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't smile. I moved back into position as servers shifted around me. A man with a headset spoke urgently to someone near the stage. The event coordinator returned this time with a manager. They spoke in low tones. The manager glanced at Tiffany, then at the tablet, then back at Tiffany. He approached her carefully. "Ms. Hart," he said, "may I speak with you for a moment?" Tiffany's smile flickered. "Is there a problem?" "Just a small issue with authorization," he said. "I'll handle it," she replied. "Excuse us." She followed him a few steps away. I stopped nearby, pretending to adjust the glasses on my tray. The manager held up the tablet. We attempted to process the final payment. It didn't go through. "That's a mistake," Tiffany said. "We tried the backup method as well." Her fingers tightened around her clutch. "Try again." "We did." She leaned in. "You're embarrassing me." "I'm trying to prevent that," he said. She laughed sharply. "I'm Allison Hart. Do you know who you're speaking to?" He nodded. "That's part of the issue." Her phone buzzed again. She looked at it. Her face changed, not dramatically, just enough. She stepped back, eyes scanning the room. I watched from the edge. She dialed a number, turned away. "I need this fixed," she said into the phone. "Now." She listened. Her shoulders stiffened. "No," she said. "That doesn't make sense." She ended the call and tried another. Around us, the room kept moving. People sipped drinks, laughed, posed for photos. No one noticed the hairline fractures yet. 2 uniformed officers entered the ballroom quietly. Not rushing, not scanning wildly, just moving with intent. The manager noticed first. He straightened. The event coordinator froze. Tiffany turned and saw them. For the first time that night, she didn't control her expression fast enough. I stepped back as those officers approached her directly. "Ma'am," one said. "Are you Allison Hart?" Tiffany lifted her chin. "Yes." The word came out sharp. "We need to ask you a few questions regarding identity verification and financial activity." A few heads turned. "This is inappropriate," she said. I'm in the middle of an event. It won't take long, the officer said. She laughed brittle. There's been a mistake. The second officer glanced at his tablet. That's what we're here to clarify. A man beside Tiffany leaned away slightly. Someone else took out a phone. I am a U.S. Army officer, Tiffany said louder now. You need to show some respect. The officer didn't react. We need you to step aside. I'm not going anywhere, she said. You can speak to my attorney. Of course, he replied. We'll wait. The room was paying attention now. Conversation stalled. Music softened. Tiffany looked around, searching for support. My parents stood near the back, frozen. My mother's hand was pressed to her mouth. My father stared at the floor. Tiffany's phone buzzed again. She didn't answer it. Ma'am, the officer said again, calm and patient. Please come with us. She took a step back. This is harassment. The officer didn't argue. He waited. Finally, Tiffany straightened, smoothed her dress, lifted her chin. Fine, she said. Let's clear this up. They walked her toward the exit. Not dragging, not forcing, just guiding. As they passed, she saw me. Recognition hit her like cold water. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I met her gaze and said nothing. The doors closed behind them. The room exhaled, confused. The music restarted too early. Laughter returned in the wrong places. The manager spoke quietly to a group near the stage. The sign with my name was taken down. I handed my tray to another server and stepped away. No one stopped me. No one asked questions. Outside, the night air felt steady, clean. I checked my phone. More alerts. More confirmations. I didn't read them all. Across the street, through the glass, I could see Tiffany pacing near the lobby, phone pressed to her ear, her confidence unraveling in small, precise movements. I turned and walked away at a normal pace. Behind me, the event kept pretending nothing had happened. The technician set the case on a small table beside the bench and opened it without ceremony. Inside were tools no one in the room found dramatic because they'd all seen them before. Fingerprint scanner, retinal reader, standard issue. The kind of equipment that doesn't care about confidence. The judge looked at Tiffany. Ms. Hart, please step forward. She rose smoothly. No hesitation. No glance at me. She placed her purse on the table and approached the scanner like someone used to being trusted. Her lawyer leaned close, whispered something. She nodded once. Place your fingers on the pad, the technician said. She did. A soft beep sounded. Then another. The technician frowned slightly and adjusted the screen. Again, please. Tiffany pressed harder this time, irritation flashing across her face. The beep sounded again, different tone. The technician looked up. Fingerprint does not match the service member record for Allison Hart. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Not loud. Just enough to shift the air. Tiffany laughed lightly. That's impossible. The judge raised a hand. Proceed. The technician reset the device. Retinal scan. Tiffany leaned forward, eyes to the reader. She held still. Perfect posture. The machine processed. Another beep. Retinal pattern does not match the registered record for Allison Hart. The room went quiet in a way that wasn't polite. Tiffany straightened. There must be an error. The judge looked at the technician. Confirm. The technician nodded. The system is functioning properly. Tiffany turned to her lawyer. Say something. He stood quickly. Your Honor, my client has documented medical conditions that may affect biometric readings. The judge tilted his head slightly. Those documents are under review. He turned to the technician. Proceed with secondary verification. The technician looked at me. Ms. Hart, please step forward. I stood and walked to the table without rushing. No one whispered this time. No one needed to. Place your fingers on the scanner, he said. I did. Beep. Match confirmed. He nodded. Retinal scan. I leaned in. Beep. Identity verified. Allison Hart. The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They settled into the room like something heavy being set down where it belonged. Tiffany stared at the screen. Her mouth opened slightly. Closed. Opened again. That's not possible, she said. Louder this time. The judge looked directly at her. Ms. Hart, step back. She didn't move. I said, step back, he repeated. She took a half step, eyes locked on me. She's lying, she said. She's confused. The judge didn't raise his voice. The court recognizes biometric verification. The verified service member known as Allison Hart is present. That was the sentence. Not dramatic, not emotional, just definitive. Tiffany shook her head. I am Allison Hart. The judge's gaze didn't change. No, you are not. Her lawyer touched her arm. Sit down. She pulled away. You're making a mistake. The judge turned to the clerk. Read the defendant's legal name into the record. The clerk stood. Defendant's legal name as recorded on original birth certificate, Tiffany Hart. A ripple moved through the room. Not shock. Recognition. Tiffany's knees stiffened. Her face drained of color. This is harassment, she said weakly. The judge ignored her and continued. All documents submitted under the identity of Allison Hart by the defendant are hereby deemed fraudulent. Her lawyer sank back into his chair. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, based on verification, we move to admit additional evidence regarding financial fraud, benefit misuse, and falsification of federal records. Admitted, the judge said. Tiffany turned toward my parents in the gallery. My mother covered her mouth. My father stared straight ahead, unmoving. Tiffany's voice rose. You can't do this. I served. The judge leaned forward slightly. Service is verified by records, not repetition. Court officers stepped closer. Not touching her yet. Just present. The prosecutor continued listing counts. Each one read clearly. Each one tied to documentation already submitted. Identity theft. Financial institution fraud. Misrepresentation of military service. Unauthorized access to federal benefits. Misuse of nonprofit funds. Tiffany shook her head slowly like she was watching someone else being described. Her lawyer whispered urgently. She didn't respond. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she laughed once. A short, brittle sound. I did what I had to, she said. No one would have cared about me otherwise. The judge nodded. That is not a legal defense. He looked down at the file. Based on evidence presented and verification conducted, the court finds the defendant guilty on all counts. Tiffany swayed. A court officer reached out, steadying her by the arm. The judge continued, voice even. The defendant is sentenced to a term of 15 years in federal custody, followed by restitution and permanent record of conviction. The words landed without drama. Final, ordinary. Tiffany's legs gave out. She dropped to one knee, then the other. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. No, she whispered. No. The officers lifted her gently. She didn't resist. She couldn't. As they led her toward the exit, she looked at me one last time. There was no anger left, no calculation, just fear. I didn't look away. The gavel struck once. The room shifted. People stood. Papers shuffled. Voices returned in cautious tones. I remained seated for a moment, letting the noise reorganize itself around the truth. Then I stood and walked toward the door as officers escorted Tiffany out. Through a side exit. Her confidence gone. Her name finally returned to her. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Microphones extended. Questions fired. I stopped at the top of the steps. Do you feel justice was served? Someone asked. I considered it. Yes. One word was enough. I walked down the steps into the city, my phone vibrating with notifications. I didn't check my name restored, not by emotion, but by record. Behind me, the courthouse doors closed, and the system moved on to its next case without needing my permission. I didn't stay for interviews. I didn't wait for statements or follow-ups or reactions. The city outside the courthouse was already moving on, and I stepped into it like I'd never left. That was the point. I wasn't there to be witnessed. I was there to be correct. The first thing I did was sit down with an auditor from the nonprofit Tiffany had touched. Not to explain myself, to help untangle what she'd done. It took weeks, not dramatic weeks, administrative ones, lists, phone calls, corrections. Some money was recovered, some wasn't. The people who'd been affected were notified. Quietly, properly. That mattered more to me than numbers. The second thing I did was meet with a housing officer from the bank. My parents' house had already slipped past the point of saving. Too many leveraged decisions stacked on top of each other. It was going to be repossessed no matter how cooperative anyone felt now. My parents didn't argue. They didn't ask me to intervene. They just watched the process happen like people who finally understood gravity. I bought it back through a clean sale. No favors, no discounts, market value. My name on the documents, my signature verified. The house felt empty when I walked through it alone for the first time. Not haunted, just cleared out. The furniture was gone, the staged confidence stripped away. It was Smaller's. Familiar again. I didn't renovate it to impress anyone. I made it functional. Bunk beds, locks that worked, smoke detectors tested twice, a kitchen that could handle real use. The kind of use that leaves fingerprints and noise and unfinished conversations. The sign on the front door didn't mention me. It mentioned veterans, people who needed a transition. Not pity. Structure. I kept my job. My clearance was reviewed and restored without comment. The internal process closed the same way it opened, with forms and confirmations, and a final line that said no further action required. That line meant more to me than any apology ever could. My parents tried to talk to me once more. Not to argue, to explain. I listened. I didn't correct them. I didn't comfort them either. Understanding doesn't require agreement. I told them where I stood clearly without cruelty. That this wasn't about punishment. It was about consequences. That they'd made choices that removed them from parts of my life they didn't get to re-enter automatically. They nodded. They cried. They didn't ask again. Tiffany didn't reach out. She couldn't. And even if she had, there was nothing left to negotiate. The system had finished its work. So had I. Months passed. Not in montages, in tasks. I helped one former infantry sergeant fill out job applications without talking about his past unless he wanted to. I showed another how to navigate medical paperwork without feeling like a problem. I sat at the kitchen table with people who had lost more than I ever had, and didn't ask them to be grateful for anything. That felt right. One night, sitting on the front steps with a cup of coffee, I realized something had changed. Not around me, in me. The quiet wasn't tense anymore. It wasn't waiting for the next disruption. It was just quiet. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. He wrote, "You good?" I replied, "I'm accurate." He sent back a thumbs up and nothing else. That was enough. I thought about my name then. Not as a symbol, as a tool. It opened doors. It carried responsibility. It needed protection, not worship. I hadn't fought to reclaim it, so I could stand taller than anyone else. I'd reclaimed it so no one else could use it as a weapon again. People talk about revenge like it has to be loud, like it needs witnesses, like it's incomplete without humiliation. I didn't want that. I wanted my records clean, my work honest, my boundaries respected. That's not revenge. That's ownership. The house filled up faster than I expected. Word spreads when things work, when rules are clear, when no one is pretending. Some nights there was laughter, bad jokes, arguments about sports that didn't matter. Other nights were quiet, heavy in the way only honest spaces can be. I stayed out of the spotlight. Not because I was hiding, because I didn't need it. The last thing I did before the year turned was update my files. Everything current, everything correct, addresses verified, contacts confirmed, redundancies in place. Not paranoid, prepared. I closed the laptop and shut off the light. Upstairs, someone was still awake, pacing softly. Another person was snoring without apology. The house settled into itself like it remembered what it was supposed to be. I didn't think about Tiffany then, or my parents, or the courtroom. I thought about the fact that my name was mine again, not because I'd taken it back from someone else, but because I'd decided what it would be used for. And that finally felt like coming home. Sometimes the hardest revenge stories aren't about getting even. They're about taking your life back when the people closest to you decided you didn't matter. Family revenge stories hit differently because the damage doesn't start with hate. It starts with trust. In this story, justice didn't come from shouting, exposing, or destroying a family. It came from refusing to disappear and letting the truth do its work. If you've ever faced family drama where your name, your effort, or your identity was taken for granted, you already know how real this is. If stories like this resonate with you, stories about family truth and quiet justice, subscribe to the channel. More stories are coming, and every one of them starts with someone choosing themselves.